Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the RMS Republic. In 1981, researchers were on a dive when they came across the wreck of the RMS Republic. This ship was built in 1903 and it ended up being lost at sea in 1909. Since 1909, there were plenty of rumors that began swirling that said the ship may have been carrying a whole bunch of treasure. Like treasure that could perhaps be worth billions of dollars. One of the rumors was that the ship was carrying US gold coins that would have been worth a minimum of $250,000, but there's an even crazier rumor that the ship was carrying $3 million in coins as it was supposed to be a loan to Russia. Either way, this treasure has actually never been found, as it certainly wasn't with the ship when the researchers came across it. Do you guys think that there was never any treasure, or do you think that someone else found it first? In our number 9 spot today, we have this ancient battle gear. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far, because it really helps us out. These artifacts were actually found recently after a dive in 2013. Just off the coast of Sicily, archaeologists located what they believe may have been the site of the first naval battle. They found armor, weapons, helmets, and battering rams, and they were even able to date them back to around 2,000 years ago, which is so unbelievable. They believe that these artifacts are the remains of the Battle of the Agadi Islands. This was when the Romans battled against the Carthaginians for over 20 years. It is believed that around 50 ships were sunk in this time, and that is how these remains ended up there for 2 millenniums. I don't know about you guys, but it's honestly crazy to think about that stuff still being around. In our number 8 spot today, we have Dwarka. There was a time when the city of Dwarka was considered to be just a myth, so it came as quite a shock when researchers found the lost city 120 feet under the water. Testing done on the city remains has dated them back to 9,500 years ago, which could possibly place it even before the start of Egyptian and Chinese civilizations. This lost city consisted of 6 sectors that were each divided into residential and commercial areas. Apparently, the Great Flood that happened 9,000 years ago is the cause for the city to end up submerged in the ocean. It's crazy that we can look back 9,000 years ago and know things like that. The name Dwarka translates from Sanskrit to mean gateway to heaven. With the city, researchers also found construction material, pottery, beads, sculptures, and even human bones and teeth. The city had many royal palaces that were all made with crystal and silver and had emeralds as decorations. In our number 7 spot today, we have ancient medicine. Just off the coast of Tuscany, in 2013, researchers found the Relito del Pizzino, which was a shipping vessel that they were able to date back 2,000 years ago. Among the remains of the ship, they found some items that would help give them insights into what life was like for ancient Romans, and one of the most interesting items was ancient medicinal pills. Researchers believe that these pills were used as an eye medication. They contained zinc compounds, starch, iron oxide, beeswax, and some plant-based materials. This really helped give us more insights into what was considered medicine all the way back then, but I feel like there are many things we still don't know for sure. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Antikythera mechanism. I spoke about this crazy artifact in another one of my videos. In the very early 1900s, researchers found an ancient computer just off of a Greek island. This mechanism remains on display at the National Archaeological Museum of Athens because it is honestly unbelievable. This analog computer may have had a ton of uses, and researchers aren't 100% sure about all the ways it was used, but it is known to have been some sort of astronomical calculator. It was able to predict eclipses and different planetary placements. It was found 45 meters below the water in the wreck of a ship. This mechanism has been dated back to somewhere around 87 BC, and it is thought to have been created by a Greek scientist, but unfortunately after the creation of this ancient computer, the knowledge of this kind of technology was lost before it was found again. I truly wonder where we would be technologically if we had never lost that kind of information. In our number 5 spot today, we have Gondwana. This one is hard to think of as an artifact, but I most definitely think it applies for today's list. In 2011, National Geographic published an article where they said that pieces of Gondwana may have been discovered deep in the Indian Ocean. Gondwana is the ancient continent that used to exist when Australia, India, and Antarctica were all one landmass. Apparently, they found the presence of granite and sandstone, which is unusual to find on the seabed and is much more common to continents. There isn't a ton that is known about these microcontinents, but it truly is very mysterious and very fascinating. Since these pieces were from a time when dinosaurs still roamed the earth, they have even found fossils. In our number 4 spot today, we have these Stone Age artifacts. Swedish divers found artifacts that they believe may have been the remnants of Swedish people all the way back from the Stone Age. These artifacts were found in the Baltic Sea and are believed to be 11,000 years old. They were found 16 meters below the water, and their findings consisted of animal horns, flint tools, wood, and ropes. It's crazy that researchers have the ability to date these kinds of things as far back as they have with these ones. Apparently, they were also pretty well preserved when found, which is a whole other mystery to me. It may seem like a small find, but every artifact can help give us insight to what life on Earth was like all those years ago. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Bronze Age sewn boat. 2014 saw quite an interesting archaeological discovery when the researcher Gilia Boeto revealed that they had discovered a Bronze Age sewn boat. This boat was found in a cove in Croatia and has been dated to have been wrecked in 1200 BC, which is unbelievable. The boat is made out of wood that is sewn together by ropes, roots, and willow branches. It is 7 meters long and 2.5 meters high, and considering the fact that it is 3,200 years old, it certainly has held up remarkably. This boat has given us at least a small glimpse into how boats were made all the way back then. Sometimes I hear about things that really leave me in awe of the things that have gone on our Earth. It's so unbelievably cool to think about. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Yonaguni Monument. Who would have thought that hammerhead sharks could lead to the discovery of an ancient artifact? Well, not exactly, but in the sea just off of Yonaguni in Japan, there is a diving location that has a high population of hammerhead sharks, making it a large and popular attraction. In 1986, a diver in the area noticed some formation on the seabed that resembled a structure of some sort. This led to a team of scientists going on a dive to gather more information, and this is when the Yonaguni Monument was officially discovered. The monument is made out of sandstone and mudstone, but here's the mysterious thing. Scientists can't agree on its origins. There are some who believe that this is a natural formation, but there are some who swear that it is man-made. There are pretty reasonable arguments for both sides, and considering the fact that this thing is at least 10,000 years old, I guess it's fair to say that we may not have all the answers. In our number 1 spot today, we have Stardust. You guys, I truly don't even know what to make of this one. So apparently, 2.7 million years ago, a star exploded, and German researchers have now been able to locate pieces of it while they were drilling in the Pacific Ocean. I can't even believe that is a sentence that is true. This star was a Type 2 supernova, which means that the star had to have at least 8 times the mass of the Sun, and it also ejects iron-60 during the explosion. Somehow the star fragments ended up in the Pacific Ocean to be discovered in the remains of magnetic bacteria that were feasting on the iron from the star. Scientists believe it happened all that time ago because apparently iron-60 is way too young for Earth, whatever that means. Science is so crazy sometimes, you guys.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Antikythera mechanism. In the 1900s, a team of divers exploring a Greek island made a fascinating discovery. They came across an ancient shipwreck. The ship was filled with statues, jewelry, coins, pottery, etc. But the weirdest thing the ship contained was this blob of corroded bronze and wood. 2 years later, an archaeologist decided to examine this, and it was discovered that it was some sort of astronomical clock. But the items came from ancient Greece, and clocks hadn't been invented then. So it's pretty weird. That's suspicious, as Cardi B would say. So this item was in similar size to a mantle clock. The bits of wood fragments on it suggest that it was probably in a wooden case. They also believe the case would have had a large circular face with rotating hands. There was also a knob on the side, and the mechanism could rotate forwards or backwards. Needless to say, it was a fairly complex object for that time period, so some believe that it was left by time travelers. Moving on to number 9, we have the Viking sword. And guys, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up because it really helps us out. Archaeologists unearthed the Viking sword Ulfbert that dates back from 800 to 1000 AD, and I hope I said the sword's name right, or else you guys are gonna just come at me in the comments. So this was quite shocking since they didn't have technology to make those kind of swords back then. It was only available 800 years later during the Industrial Revolution. So what's up with that? Jerry Seinfeld, what's up with that? Not only that, but its carbon content is 3 times higher than other swords of its time. It suggests that iron ore must have been heated to at least 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit to make this sword. And they didn't have that kind of technology to do that back then. So everyone is just freaking confused. It might have been dropped by a time traveler or something like that. In our 8th spot, we have the drill bit. So for this point, a weird drill bit was found in a piece of coal. Okay, so maybe a worker lost it while working in the mines or shoveling some coal. But no, the piece of coal that it was found in was said to have formed hundreds of millions of years ago. You know, back when they didn't have drill bits. How was it that this ended up in coal? Could it be part of a time machine that fell out during the traveler's journey? Who knows? But it's pretty weird and an unexplainable discovery. Not to mention the coal was around 22 inches thick and buried down 7 feet. It just makes no sense. Moving on to number 7, we have the brass bell. Here's another weird object found inside of coal. I feel like we could just do a whole list on top 10 weird objects found in coal. So basically, in 1944, a 10-year-old boy by the name of Newton Anderson was shoveling coal into his furnace at his house. That's when a piece of coal was dropped and it broke in half. Inside the coal, there was this mysterious bell. But the coal that he was using was said to be around 300 million years old. Back then, the dominant life form on Earth was insects. So obviously they weren't using bells. Also, the bell contains an unusual mixture of metals including copper, zinc, tin, arsenic, iodine, and selenium. Not a typical combination used to make objects. Now, a man named Boris Balazs ended up taking the bell to the geology department at the University of Delaware. They conducted studies and discovered that the bell was handmade. So again, how on earth is this possible? And what time traveler brings a bell with them on their journey? Seriously, out of all things, a bell. In our 6th spot, we have the dino figures. In 1944, thousands of little dino-looking figurines were dug up in Mexico. I mean, okay, that's cool, I'd buy a figurine of a dinosaur. The only problem is that people and dinosaurs didn't exist at the same time. There were around 32,000 carved pieces. The pieces date back to 2500 BCE. A time when there were no dinosaurs around, and people couldn't have possibly known about them. This is all according to scientists. What does this even mean? Like, were there some other creatures that roamed the earth back then that we don't know of? Or is there a time-traveling paleontologist out there? We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Coso artifact. In 1961, 3 rock hunters were exploring the mountains of eastern California with hopes to find geodes to sell at their gift shop. They gathered a bunch of them and then took them back home, where they proceeded to cut them in half. However, one of the geodes practically broke their new crystal saw in half when they were trying to get it open. Instead of finding crystals inside, they actually discovered something more intriguing. Inside this rock mass was a perfectly circular porcelain-like section. In the center of the section was a tiny magnetic pin. An X-ray of the rock revealed that there was also a spring or helix at one end. From there, people realized that it resembles a modern-day spark plug. However, it's theorized that this rock is about 500,000 years old. But spark plugs were not invented until the 19th century. Again, is this a piece from a time machine or what? In our 4th spot, we have the ancient laptop. In a sculpture from 100 BC, it depicts what appears to be a young girl holding open a laptop for another woman. Of course, they didn't have laptops back then, so what is this? Not gonna lie, it does look like a laptop. And if it's not, then what is it? People then thought, okay, maybe it's a jewelry box, but the width of the structure is too narrow to be a jewelry box. Now, here's something to think about. Look back at the old Greek tales about the Oracle of Delphi. This was said to allow the priests to connect with the gods. In return, they give them advanced info. Many believe that this was given to them from the gods. Not only that, but the thing she's holding has 2 holes in it. Maybe one for a charging cable and the other for a USB key, perhaps? I don't know, that's just what people think. Moving on, number 3, we have the gold airplanes. A couple of years ago, researchers were studying the Incas when they discovered they left behind some interesting objects. One was a small golden figurine that closely resembles a modern jet plane. Upon analyzing them, people have noticed that the figures have what appears to be wings, a stabilizing tail, and landing gears. But of course, they didn't have planes back then, so isn't that interesting? Ancient astronaut theorists are convinced that the Incas somehow knew what planes were. This has led people to believe that maybe they were in contact with aliens. In our second spot, we have the old hammer. Back in 1934, a hammer was found in Texas. The hammer was encased in stone. This stone was said to be more than 100 million years old. Which brings up the question, how the hell did they have hammers 100 million years ago? The hammer was complete with a wooden handle and everything, but it had turned to coal because of the age. This suggests that this hammer was made even before humans were around. I'm telling you, some time traveler went back 100 million years ago and then left their damn hammer. Or maybe their machine broke down and they tried to fix it, but were unsuccessful and got stuck there. And all that survived was their lone hammer. And in our number one spot, we have the Egyptian hieroglyphs. This one is pretty crazy, not gonna lie. So upon studying ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, scientists noticed some unusual glyphs present. These glyphs looked exactly like modern day planes and helicopters. Obviously, they didn't have planes and helicopters back then, so this is crazy! These glyphs were found in a temple in Egypt and are said to be roughly 3,000 years old. There's drawings of insects and birds, and then you can clearly see what looks like those two aircrafts. So there are a couple of theories here. Number one, Egyptians are smarter and way more advanced than we thought. They didn't have planes, but maybe they were already drawing blueprints for them. Theory 2, they were visited by alien life forms, and what they were drawing are the alien spacecrafts that they saw. Or 3, they developed time travel and saw into the future. And then they're trying to tell others about what they saw in the future through these glyphs. Starting off this countdown, we have the Kosu artifact. In 1963, 3 rock hunters were exploring the mountains of eastern California with hopes to find geodes to sell at their gift shop. They gathered a bunch of them and took them home, where they proceeded to cut them in half. However, one of the geodes practically broke their new crystal saw in half when trying to cut it open. Instead of finding crystals, they actually discovered something more intriguing. Inside the rock mass was a perfectly circular porcelain-like section. In the center of the section was a tiny magnetic pin. An X-ray of the rock revealed that there was also a spring or helix at one of the ends. From there, people realized that it resembles a modern-day spark plug. However, it is theorized that this rock is around 500,000 years old. But spark plugs were not invented until the 19th century. So this has left people thinking that it's proof of alien visitors, saying that it came from their spacecraft. Meaning, they're way more clever than we realized, since they created this technology thousands of years before we did. Others believe that it was left behind by time travelers. Then you have the skeptics that have tried to debunk it by saying it simply was just a spark plug from the 1920s and then someone threw it out, so it's just a piece of someone's trash that we're all hyping up. But honestly, you choose what you want to believe. In our 9th spot, we have the Roswell Rock. The Roswell Rock, as featured in a couple of episodes of the show Ancient Aliens, is a very weird rock with a detailed design. The rock is uniform in color, unusually smooth, and has a design protruding from the surface of it. This rock was found in Roswell, New Mexico in 2004. A man named Robert Ridge, a deer hunter, apparently found this rock half sticking out of the ground. He also discovered that it had strange magnetic properties. Upon analyzing it, people have realized that the rock's design exactly matches a crop circle that was found in England in 1996. Some people believe that it's just a man-made copy of the crop circles. Other people believe that it conveys some sort of message from aliens. After experts have analyzed the design, they noticed that it's a pattern of a sun and a moon inside a circle. Linda Moulton Howe, an investigative journalist, believes that the sun, moon, and skies are present throughout the solar system and all the galaxies, meaning maybe aliens are trying to teach us about astronomy. Or the rock contains some sort of date for some event that has happened or will happen. Making our way down the list at number 8, we have the ancient airplane. Researchers have noticed that the Incas left behind some very interesting objects. One of the more notable ones are the figures that are small and golden that closely resemble modern jet planes. Upon analyzing them, people have noticed that the figures have what appears to be wings, a stabilizing tail, and landing gears. Ancient astronaut theorists believe that they are a figure of planes. But we know that planes were not created back then. This has led people to believe that they indeed were in contact with extraterrestrials that had advanced technology, whereas others think they're supposed to represent flying creatures like bees or fish. But again, it's for you to decide. Coming in at number 7, we have the alien head. Okay, this one, I can't lie, it's pretty weird. In 2017, a man in Cusco came forward with an artifact that he claims he found in the southern desert of Peru. This artifact appears to be a mummified life form, eerily resembling an alien. An X-ray concluded that the skull had angled eyelids with shallow eye sockets, 2 nostrils, and a narrow slit-type mouth. Under the skull, you can see exposed bone. Now, the skull is covered in a type of clay that gives the skull a more alien-type appearance. But it is discovered that it is a real skull. But it isn't concluded that if it's an alien skull or if it's just an animal skull that has been preserved and then morphed in appearance because of the clay coating. But what's weird is apparently there have been tons of skulls discovered in Peru. Lots of them have elongated skulls, which aliens are said to have. Maybe it's evidence that alien species were once inhabitants there. In our 6th spot, we have the alien hands. Okay, this is where it gets even weirder. In the same area where the skull was found, they found a hand with only 3 elongated fingers. It has nothing to do with the previously mentioned skull, though. The skull is tiny, whereas the hand is larger than a human hand. So this hand type thing is said to be made of bone type material and some kind of skin. Just like the skull, the hand is also coated with clay. X-rays of this hand show that each finger has 6 bones. Human hands only have 3. Each of the fingers also contains something that is thought to be a fingernail, but we don't know exactly what creature this hand is from. Some thinks that it's from an animal, others are convinced that it indeed is an alien hand. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Gosford glyphs. The Gosford glyphs refer to the rock carvings that seem to resemble ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics that were found in New South Wales. In Brisbane Water National Park, there is a site that contains 2 8-foot-high walls that contain over 300 carvings. It is said that these glyphs are about 4,600 years old. Experts have ended up decoding the glyphs and say that in one section it talks about 2 brothers coming here from Egypt. They got shipwrecked on this land and one got bitten by a snake and passed away. But the most striking carving is one that looks like an alien spaceship. It has a classic UFO shape with rays shooting down. Egyptologists are confused by this carving as it doesn't fit in with all the other ones, but they believe that it had to be significant in order for them to carve it. Ancient astronaut theorists believe that these markings show that people have been in contact with aliens before. In our 4th spot, we have the UFO tooth wheel. A Russian man was using coal to heat his home when he realized something odd sticking out of one of the pieces of coal. Researchers stated that it looked like a toothed wheel. Testing of this object revealed that it was 98% aluminum and 2% magnesium. What's weird is humans didn't learn to make aluminum until 1825, but this coal piece is 300 million years old, and the tooth object appears to be artificially made. This object resembles parts that are used in things like microscopes or electronic devices. So, who created this object and what was it originally used for? Scientists are still conducting tests on the object with hopes of uncovering the answers to those questions. In our 3rd spot, we have the Betts Mystery Sphere. On March 27, 1974, the Betts family were out examining a small brush fire near their property. While doing so, the family came across a completely smooth metal sphere about the size of a bowling ball. On the sphere, there was a triangle engraved on it. They took it home only to find out that it had very strange properties. One day when the Betts son was playing his guitar in the same room as the sphere started to emit a throbbing sound from it. The sound was strong enough to hurt the family's dog's ears. This sphere could also change direction, so if you pushed it or rolled it across the floor, it could roll forward, stop, and then roll right back to you. It was also said to be able to absorb power from solar energy, as it would be more active when exposed to the sun. The sphere would also sometimes emit vibrations as if something was operating on the inside of it. Now, they refused to let anyone analyze it until they linked the sphere to paranormal activity that started happening around their house. Like doors would slam or they would hear organ music around the house. So then they let scientists analyze it and said that it was just a normal sphere. But the family is convinced that something is controlling it. Maybe something of the extraterrestrial nature. Moving on to number 2, we have the brass bell. In 1944, a 10-year-old boy by the name of Newton Anderson was shoveling coal into his furnace at his home. That's when a piece of coal was dropped and broke in half. Inside the coal revealed a mysterious bell. The coal that he was using was said to be about 300 million years old. Back then, the dominant life form on Earth was insects. So how could it have been manufactured back then? Also, the bell contained an unusual mixture of metals, including copper, zinc, tin, arsenic, iodine, and selenium. Not a typical combination used to make objects. Now, a man named Boris Billis ended up taking the bell to the geology department at the University of Delaware. From there, they conducted studies and discovered that the bell was handmade. Now, of course, people were skeptical, thinking that the boy lied and didn't find the bell in coal. But in 2007, he underwent a polygraph test conducted by a specialist who worked on death row cases. It was discovered that he was indeed telling the truth. His report is even posted online for others to see. So people again have linked this strange object to aliens. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Wedge of Aiud. In 1974, construction workers in Romania were working in a village in Aiud. They were working near a river when they found a collection of strange objects buried 30 feet in the sand. 2 of the objects were bones from mastodons, which are very distant relatives of the elephant. Beside the bones laid a mysterious wedge-shaped object. This object contained 89% aluminum, 6% copper, and a total of 12 elements altogether. Like I mentioned previously, aluminum wasn't discovered until around 1825. Yet this wedge lay next to bones that are from around 11,000 years ago. The wedge itself is theorized to be around 10,000 years old. People believe that this object just couldn't have existed back then. An aeronautical engineer stated that this object looks exactly like a piece of a landing gear for landing aircraft. This has left researchers to believe that extraterrestrials crashed here around 11,000 years ago, and this piece is part of their spacecraft.